Alright, welcome back. So in this video, we are going to see how we can start using Node in our applications, right? And like not the syntax. The syntax will start from the next video. From tomorrow, I think. But in this video, we are going to see how Node actually helps us run our files on the backend, right? So these are all the things that we've studied, and like these are the two things that you can do with Node. And before we even start, let me tell you the first one is like only as useful as the console on the browser, right? Because you don't actually use it. It's even less useful because you can't even see errors on it. If you have on the browser console, you can see errors, but in here you don't see actually any errors, right? I mean, with just this. This, however, is something that you will be doing all the time, right? Like you will have your server file which will be running, and that's how your server will keep on running. We'll see that later, but for now, let's just start with these two methods, right? First one is console, right? So the first thing that if you have set up a local environment, and yeah, before even that, I had said that I'd work on a local environment in my computer, but I think it's better if you can actually replicate what's happening here on your own computer, right? And if I was working on things like this, then it could be a problem for you. And I mean, on things like the local system, like having a separate terminal and having a separate VS Code. And I think this will be better for all of you right now. So that's why I'll be switching to Gurm for this course, right? Great. So, but if you have set up a local environment, then you might want to check if you actually have Node installed correctly. Then for that, you can do node-v. And even in Gurm, you can do node-v. So what that does is, it actually tells you the version of Node that you are running. And I'm running version 12.18.1, which is actually the latest stable version, which is recommended for most users. There's a version 14.2, but that's not yet recommended. There might be bugs in that, right? Great. So we have version 12.18.1 in our Gurm ID here. So first thing is the console, right? So how can you run the console? You can basically just write node and you press enter. So you see it says welcome to Node.js version type.help for more information. And the console changes, right? Now you have this sign right here and don't have this console. Now you can type in here your commands, right? So what basically this console is, it is like the console we have on our browser, except this is not on the front end. This is on the back end, right? So, a lot of things that you are doing with your browser, like you are doing document, right? You are using document. So if I write document in here, it says document is not defined. And that is because document is a thing on the front end, right? Document is a thing for the browser, not for the back end. On the back end, you don't access the document, right? So that's why document is not defined. And because this console is a JavaScript console, you can write simple JavaScript in here. You can write 10 plus 9, that gives you 19. You could make a function and that would work, right? So it requires a function name, of course. This is not the valid syntax, but you see that functions are actually valid in this node console. So you can write your normal JavaScript in here, but you cannot use the things that are specific to the front end, like the document, right? So things like that will not work. Plus an alert will not work. Let's say, so specifically I'm mentioning alert because that is something that we often used in our normal JavaScript console, and it is not working here, and there's a reason behind that, right? So that reason basically is that, of course, an alert you will have on a browser, right? So this is running on the backend, so there's no browser. But you might think that this ID is actually running on a browser, so why can't we get an alert here? So here the thing that I want you to understand is about the Gurm ID, right? It seems like we are running something on the browser, but essentially what's happening is this is kind of running on one of their computers, which is placed somewhere else, which is not working on this browser. So basically if I'm doing this, or if I'm doing, let's say I open up my terminal here and I have something installed. Yeah, so let's say I write node here and I enter this console, right? So in here, obviously, alert makes no sense because this is a terminal. This is not a browser, right? So where would you have an alert? And that's exactly the same as this. Like this is not at all different from my regular terminal. And this is basically you are writing this in the browser, but this is working on one of Google's computers, which is placed somewhere else, right? You could understand it like that. So that's why alert would not work. And hence you can imagine what all things would not work, which are related with one, the browser, or second, the front end, right? So that's how this goes, and this is the console. Now honestly, I've developed some apps and I've never used this, right? You might use it if like it's a really specific use and you want to just run something, but most of the times what you can do in here you can also do in the browser console, and you don't even open that. You can just, you most of the times will not use this, right? So what's the main use of node is basically running files, right? So to exit out of this, first of all you can press Control C twice, and it will be Control C for even the Mac users. So yeah, all right. So yeah, and now I'll clear the console. Right. So now I'm in my basic terminal, and if I do pwd, I'm in the root. If I do ls, yeah, so that was actually in some weird space. Yeah. So we are in this workspace web dev course now, right? And now we can actually start running the file. So what does running a file basically mean? Like running JS files. This is the thing that you will be doing all the time from your node, right? Now let's say I have this main.js file and currently it has this, but what if I replace this with, let's say, for loop, and right, I did this, and next I wrote running file. So now I'll remove all of these, and I'll just let one remain there. So now I should get this running file 5 times. But for that, like we are calling the function, and this function is defined. But how does this execution actually start, right? How does my system know that now it has to execute this main.js file? So that is what Node helps you to do. What you can write here is you can write node main.js. So what this will do is this will start executing main.js for you. And of course this does not work because we are not in the right directory. So what I can do is I can cd into intro to command line, and now I can do node.node main.js. And you see I get running file 6 times because I've given equal to here too. So it runs for 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Great. So basically we wrote node main.js and we run our file here, right? And this is the kind of thing that you will be doing a lot. How? That currently this main.js is basically a function at its call, but eventually what we will have is that there will be a file named app.js, or you could name it anything, and it will be like this. It will be running the server for your website. It will be telling the computer that you have to run my website on port number this, like, right? If you remember the code that I'd shown you in the backend workflow section, there was like an app.listen 3000, right? So that was setting up the server. After that, what I did was I wrote node app.js, right? So with that, I was actually telling my computer to start running app.js, and everything inside app.js was to be executed. Then as soon as my app.js got to app.listen, right, inside my app.js there was this one set of code starting the server. Then my server was started, right? And that's what happened. Then I was able to access my website on localhost, right? So this is basically the basic of how you would use Node, and like this, all the code we'll be writing will be through Express, basically, which is a framework of Node. But we'll start that soon, really soon. And this was basically how you could, how Node is actually helpful. Because if you think that without Node can you run this file, no, you cannot. Without Node, the max you can do with JavaScript is you can just link it with some HTML file and you can run it in the browser. There's no way to run JavaScript outside of the browser without using Node, right? So that's what JavaScript runtime meant there, and this is how Node is actually helpful. So yeah, that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.